Live and online, it's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve. We are live and in living color on YouTube. It may look like a gruesome twosome, but rest assured, Dominic will be joining us momentarily, hopefully in a few short minutes, sooner rather than later. I'm Steve Pulaski, joined as always at the moment by Joe Viso, and hopefully very soon, Dominic Guanzon. We are coming to you live again in living color on Wednesday evening. Back in the saddle, took quite a sabbatical. I kind of like the way that flowed. Took quite a sabbatical from work and kind of movies in general. The negative on that was I did plan this vacation several months ago, and I didn't really realize how, I'm going to be doing so much running around when I'm back home that I'm not going to really have a chance to watch too many horror movies in time for Halloween. So that was a little bit disappointing, and I wound up not getting back until Halloween evening, not getting back to Iowa until Halloween evening. And you know what my planned Halloween movie was for this year? And I didn't get to watch it yet. I'm going to watch it next week, and it kind of sucks. You know what I was going to do? Because I was originally coming home on Sunday, but instead I came home on Halloween. You know what movie I was planning to watch? Crimes of the Future.
Oh, shit.
I swear to God, I had a really good plan of, turning all the lights off by, 4 or 5 o'clock and then watching that movie at, 7. With a candle lit or something.
Yeah.
And I might still do that even though it won't have the same impact. But that was going to be my Halloween movie, was Crimes of the Future, because I still haven't seen that. There ain't no way that movie's coming to Eastern Iowa. So I didn't get to see that earlier this year. And I just thought that'd be a good Halloween movie. But alas, it was not. But I'm back today. And this is the first movie I actually watched in a couple of weeks, the one we're going to be discussing today. So I'll have a review on that probably tomorrow as well as tackling Tar and Weird the Al Yankovic story. But enough about me. The world went on despite me taking a 2-week break from writing movie reviews. Let's talk towards the show. Today we're going to be talking about Wendell and Wild, which is the new stop-motion animation movie on Netflix. Originally set to talk about Tar, but again, I screwed that one up as well, 0 for 2. In the movie realm, wanted to see Tar when I was back home with dad and family on vacation, but didn't get a chance to, which was kind of a blessing in disguise because I was doing so much running around over my vacation. A lot of good stuff, a lot of fun stuff, but I was doing so much running around that I don't know if I would have appreciated it as much or been able to sink into it as much because it's a long-ass movie. Have you seen it yet, Joe? Have you caught it yet or not
Tar?
Yet? Yeah.
No, it actually started playing at my theaters this weekend, and I was very unaware of that. I was so focused more again because no one goes to the theater on fucking Halloween. So it was the last thing that was on my mind was to check what was playing in theaters. If I would have known, I probably would have checked out a Friday evening or a Saturday morning showing just to get it out of the way. But I'll have to go this weekend then.
Yeah, I'm going Friday for it. Just because I want to go to an early showing because it's so long.
Yeah.
You got to think, factor in previews. That's a 3-hour set.
Man, dude, these next few movies we have to review. We have this, Wakanda Forever, Avatar 2.
That's a long one.
Avatar 2, which is going to be 3 hours and 15 minutes. Babylon, which is going to be 3 hours and 8 minutes. Here's the
thing.
Is
Babylon that long?
Babylon is 3 hours and 8 minutes.
You got to be shitting me. I didn't know that. That movie's 3 hours and 8 minutes?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was telling my friends this, and especially if you go to AMC, when it is a 2.5 hour plus movie, that's it. Your day has to be planned around that. Not your day, but your morning, your afternoon, or your evening, that is what you're doing then.
It does.
Because you get to the theater, you gotta watch 20 fucking trailers, you gotta hear Nicole Kidman tell you why it's amazing to come to AMC theaters, and then you're reminded one last time about A-List, and then, depending on which format you go to, you got to see something in a Dolby IMAX with a normal screening.
It's 25 minutes. It's 25 minutes of pre-roll.
And then you finally get to the theater. You finally get to the movie you're there to see.
Wow, yeah, I didn't even think about that because Black Panther, Wakanda Forever is 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Tar's 2 hours and 38 minutes. Babylon, now breaking news to me, they forgot to send me that memo, was 3 hours and 8 minutes. And Christ, Avatar's 3 hours and 10 minutes. Oh my God, yeah. So our asses are going to be numb throughout the rest of the month. I wonder if Dom knows this. I wonder if Dom knows this earth-shattering news. How are you, King?
Thor: Love and Thunder. There were like at least 2 women in it. 2 out of 10. Okay.
Okay.
All right, get that out of the way. Good. Got that out of the way too. Hey, did you know this, Dom? So first off, did you know this? We're going real off the rails here. That's what happens when I come back from a sabbatical. Joe brought up a good point because we're reviewing Tar next week. He said that these next several movies we're going to be reviewing on Sleepless are going to be ass-numbingly long. Tar is 2 hours and 38 minutes. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is 2.5 hours. Did you know that new Babylon movie, that new Damien Chazelle movie with Margot Robbie? You've seen the preview.
I did hear about it, yeah.
That's 3 hours and 8 minutes.
It's okay. See, that's more like ass-numbingly long.
That's
I still get tingles at 2.5.
Do you know about Avatar 2's runtime?
I can imagine. It's like
3 hours, 3 hours and 15 minutes. Yeah,
that sounds right. That sounds right for that guy.
Oh man, so yeah, we are going to be going, might be even bleeding into OT with some of them reviews. I'm still pumped for Babylon. I feel like the hype for Babylon's pretty minimal. I know we still got about 2 months before it comes out, but I feel like Babylon doesn't have the pre-release hype of La La Land and even First Man. That was Damien Chazelle's last movie, which is about 4 years ago. But I'm pumped for it. Holy crap. And just from that trailer too, that like 2.5 minute trailer, that already is exhausting. All the drugs and the partying and everything. So we shall see.
Wolf of Wall Street flies by like that, and that's all just debauchery. So
sure, yeah, that's probably a very good comp, at least judging from the trailer. We will burn those bridges when we come to it. Next week, we got an illustrious doubleheader of Tar and Weird the Al Yankovic Story. So those two movies go together like oil and water over here. But our attention is on Wendell and Wild today, and we're also going to touch on Henry Selick doing a little buzz for this movie, too, and bringing up A Nightmare Before Christmas. We're going to touch on that great AV Club article that I do want to make note of, and I think it's just fitting because we're talking about a Henry Selick movie here, too. His latest. I want to start with this movie, and Dom, perfect timing when you joined. I want to start by saying with this movie that I have to quote Brian Tallarico from RogerEbert.com. He brought up a really good point. He said in his opening paragraph for the review, he said, Henry Selick is back, and animation really missed him. He kind of contextualized Tallarico, the film critic. He said, like, the landscape that we're currently in. He says, Leica, I always screw up the name, Leica Animation. They've been on a long hiatus after a couple of bombs. Pixar is kind of all over the place in a way. Pixar's a little bit all over the place. Turning Red was good. Lightyear was mediocre.
They're not down in the dumps, Pixar, but just because they set such a high standard for themselves in those first 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
Or 10 years. Yeah.
And they're coming off a big bomb in Lightyear, and it's like, are they going to stick with the theatrical model? So there's a little bit of uncertainty with Pixar there. And Studio Ghibli, too, really hasn't done much and is kind of waiting on that, like, long-in-the-works final Miyazaki movie, too. So it comes at a really interesting time, this Henry Selick movie. Henry Selick, incredible animator. I mean, we'll talk about it more in the next segment, too, but doesn't get a ton of credit. His movies are more known than he is, like Nightmare Before Christmas, James and the Giant Peach, which I low-key love James and the Giant Peach. I don't know about you guys. I low-key love that movie. I love that story. It's such a weird story.
It is.
And it was a really good movie. I saw it at a really young age, so I've always had a super soft spot for James and the Giant Peach. But there's another name that might overshadow Selick's that's attached to Wendell and Wild, and it's Jordan Peele's. Jordan Peele co-wrote this with Henry Selick. God, wouldn't you love to be in that writer's room? Henry Selick and Jordan Peele co-wrote this, and Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele actually do voices, and their stop-motion characters couldn't be more fitting for them either. I want a action figure of Jordan Peele's stop motion of his character in this movie. I want an action figure of Wild.
Did you notice also, like, their models were definitely, like, their claymation models were definitely based on their facial features? Like,
it's actually, when they first appeared, their first form, when you first meet them, it was actually almost too close to me, and I'm like, oh no, is this just going to be like, are they going to Key and Peele it up too much? Which They kind of sort of do, but not in a bad way. They get into the characters, and by halfway through, it's like, all right, I still recognize them as Key and Peele, but they've like bled into the characters. That's good.
The character design here is cool. Even Ving Rhames as Buffalo Belzer, even Ving Rhames looks really cool in this thing. So we're going to talk a lot about the animation and the artwork of this thing. The character artwork is great. The other character that is bound to go kind of, I think I noticed, who like really stood out to me, and she's not in it very much, is the character Shaban. She's one of the girls at the Catholic school. Is that not Micro Mini Nicki Minaj right there?
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, like immediately she comes on screen. I'm like, no, that's Barbie. That's Barbie right there. Got the hair and everything. But yeah, Wendell and Wild. This is a quirky little movie, horror comedy. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say a little bit more successful with merging those genres than the Munsters, but I could be outweighed by opinion.
It's a very hot take you're giving there, Steve.
Yeah, and this was not on my radar at all, admittedly, until Joe brought it up as a possible stopgap in case we couldn't review Tar. And honestly, that's kind of a short change here in terms of calling this a stopgap, because it is worth talking about in its own right. But again, I did not realize really until I was reading just a little bit more about it today. I didn't read any reviews, so I don't even know what critics think of this thing, truthfully. I just watched it today. But I didn't realize too how attached Peele was to this thing.
Yeah.
This isn't like a Candyman situation where he's producer and his name is on it. No, Monkey Paw Productions is the production company behind this thing. And there's a lot to chew on, maybe a little too much to chew on in some respects of this movie. I'm going to throw it over to Joe over here. You can further expound some general thoughts about Wendell and Wild.
Yeah, man. Look, Henry Selick is back, and he's back full force. This is like definitely right up his alley. The last film I saw from him, and I mean anybody really saw from him, was Coraline, and I love that movie. There's a lot of movies I love by this man. Nightmare Before Christmas, James and the Giant Peach, like Steve said. Coraline is my favorite of his filmography. I absolutely love how dark and twisted that movie is. So, when I was seeing trailers for this movie and I saw who was attached to it, I'm like, man, you have one of the best animated horror comedy directors of Henry Selick, where he could take the visual of horror and apply it to stop motion and make it really cool, like with Nightmare Before Christmas and Coraline. You have one of the best horror directors working today, Jordan Peele. We just had Nope this year, and I was like, man, this should be a match made in heaven. And for the most part it is, but not the entire time, at least in my opinion. I was kind of disappointed with how this movie turned out. It mainly comes down to the story here and the characters. I found this movie to be funny at times. I absolutely loved its visual style and its artwork. I like the action figure details that all of the characters have. I think that's really cool and unique compared to the previous films he's done, where it is just claymation. Here they actually have you can see little pieces of clay stuck together, almost resembling action figures. I think it's just a really cool style for this type of animation. But it really sucks that this movie kind of lags throughout most of its runtime and doesn't get to the good stuff until about halfway through, and even then it just doesn't. I feel like it doesn't fully utilize it, and that is because every character introduced into this movie needs a backstory, their own plot line, and their own exposition to give every scene that they're in. And it's just we don't have time for this. Just let a character be a character. And it's just Wendell Wild, okay, give us their backstory, give us exposition, whatever. That works. Main character, played by Lyric Ross, who's Kat. Give us backstory. Love the backstory of her. Very tragic, very fitting for Henry Selick's movies when it comes to his style of filmmaking and everything. But damn, I don't need to know every person in this school, including the janitor, their backstory, have them give me loads of exposition, because now you're just cutting away from the stuff I want to see, which is these three characters interacting with each other and the dynamic that they have between one another. Because Kat, who is the main character of this movie, she loses her parents, and she wants her parents to come back, and in order to do that, she works out a deal basically with these two demons played by Keegan Michael Key and Jordan Peele. And whenever they interact, it's great. The voice talent is amazing. Those two together are just always great to have. But that doesn't happen, and I literally paused Netflix to find out. That doesn't happen until the 45-minute mark. They finally all three of them meet until then, because everybody is like taking their time building up everything. And even then, we get about only 3 scenes of them together, and then it's like, oh shit, we have a climax we got to get to in a big battle scene. Let's wrap this up. And it's just like, man, what happened behind the scenes with this movie? Was it style and substance first? Or was it style over substance? You were just so excited to have Henry Selick make an animated movie. You just let him go full force on character designs and all this other stuff, and you wanted to incorporate it into the story that you just did not have time to actually flesh anything out.
Fair points there. Definitely some fair points that I do want to expound upon when it is, again, my turn. But I want to hear Dom's general thoughts, too.
I'm gonna show you my face here as the movie went on, starting at the beginning. It's kind of like my Pearl moment right there. Yeah. I realized halfway through, I'm like, oh, I'm just doing a Mia Goth. Yeah, honestly, Joe, verbatim words right out of my mouth. It hurts. It hurts. This is disappointing. Like I want this to be good.
Same.
I want everything to be good, right? I want every Marvel movie to be great. I never ever root for any project to be bad.
No.
But this in particular, I want it to be good. The return of, stop motion. It's been in other places, but Nightmare Before Christmas, legendary, right? That's actually the only movie by Selick that I've seen. But, if it's going to be anyone, it's going to be that one. It's got a very strong, message here about all sorts of things. And I know there's some critiques out there. It's like, really, you're going to make, for-profit prisons be the big bad? Isn't that a little bit too on the nose?
Also, character design is really on the nose.
In real life, for-profit prisons is such a mind-numbingly obvious bad thing that, yes, it should be the stupidly obvious bad thing in a kid's, not quite kids, but you know what I mean, in a kid's story.
It wasn't a tech billionaire, so I wasn't mad. I wasn't that mad. It wasn't a tech billionaire.
That is a little overdone, tech billionaire, right? But it's like, nah, dude, we can have for-profit prisons be a real thing or be the bad guy for a bit, because they are a real thing in real life, and it's stupid. But in any case, yeah, it's got those things going for it. A lot of really amazing animation here. I would watch like a good hour of like behind the scenes, or at least half hour of behind the scenes on this movie. Just how it was created. Were there any on the? I don't think so. No, it's not like a Disney Plus release.
I don't believe so. No, or HBO Max that gives you those extras. Netflix is just like it. Like here's look, Daddy made you some content. Here you go.
There you go. Exactly. And the cast here, for the most part, for a good majority of it, really delivering on their performances. Shout out to James Hong as Father Best. Like, dude,
he was so good.
What a slimy ass character, and like you nailed it, dude. Just the thisness of it all, the finger twirling of it all, was really good here. But damn, Peele, what the hell? You won an Oscar for the screenplay, and I don't know the delegation here between Peele and Selick. I don't know how much of the weight you want to give between one and the other, but it's like, what happened with this screenplay? It's a pretty damn messy, or like it's not quite doing its job in the somewhat traditional story you want to tell. A lot of the themes here are refreshing.
Yeah.
A lot of the characters here are really unique and cool. Like you've got a 13-year-old black, hard as knocks girl with green hair who likes punk rock. Right. It's like, that's somewhat unique, I would say. But the themes here of like ragtag group of kids the main character, dead parents, of course, tries to, stop the big bad obvious thing from happening and literally closing down the school, borderline an orphanage. Not that unique in respect to it. Yeah. And if you're trying to deliver on that, and not seemingly not trying to deviate too much from it, it just didn't land. You literally have like a council vote. Like, all right, do we want to close the for-profit prison or do we want to prevent the for-profit prison? Oh no, the A's have it. And it's like, all right,
man, here's the other thing too. Like, I love these social messages that this movie's bringing up, like, how this school is only bringing in like poverty kids so that they can get funding because they're doing like a nonprofit thing. They're taking in these kids in order to get more funding, but then they don't really care about the kids at all. I love all that it's bringing up, especially the the whole system of they'll fail here so that later on they just go to the prison. It's all one scheme. It's like, that's great. That's something Jordan Peele would do with a horror film in some way. But it's like, the guy, like, he wrote all that out, and I don't know if he just forgot, because I look at what we had earlier this year with Nope, and it's like, you have your message and everything about spectacle and whatnot that you want to touch on with that movie, but those characters were characters. They had time to interact with one another, build their relationships. You just didn't get that with this movie at all.
No, and you notice too, like, and again, this is and this is going to bleed into our second topic, but this is a Henry Selick movie. This isn't really a Peele movie,
yep.
Not exclusively a Peele movie, but like Peele's movies, I think, work so damn well too, because like, Get Out, Nope, and or Get Out, Us, and Nope, like especially Nope, I think of the three, it's so contained. There's a finite number of characters. There's a finite number of characters who are integral to the plot, and like, I can already tell I'm going to be the more positive voice of this movie than the other than you two, but it's undeniable that this movie feels like three movies at times, and I hate it too, because I feel like I'm so redundant when I review or talk about animated movies these days, because it's often the same problem. They're too busy.
Yeah,
they're too busy. I think that's like the one lurching negative that like Lord and Miller's real impact of animation really led to, is that all these animated movies feel like so compelled to just put everything in 105 minutes, put everything in here regardless of whether or not it sticks. And I think the largest flaw here, beyond that, like, to be deeper in that, is that, and this is really one of my only complaints with the movie, but it is a large one, is that Selick and Peele needed to let the world do more of the storytelling than the actual story itself.
100%. Yeah, I know I made a big thing about, the for-profit prisons being appropriately, absurdly, big bad villain, but at the same time, a lot of the dialogue could have easily been baked in, as Steve, as you were saying. Yeah, show the classic show rather than tell. We don't need a backstory. Can we just let the Slavic wheelchair bound janitor who fights ghosts, who captures ghosts, can we just let that dude, just let his 5 lines be his thing? We don't necessarily, I mean, they didn't go too far into it, but like, we're good there. Angela Bassett's character as the nun, Sister Helly, like,
not everything needs a goddamn origin story these days. I'm so tired of that. And I know it seems like a two-pronged complaint, where it's like, if you don't get it's a character development issue, but it's like, I don't need the 6th character I meet. I don't need to know about that. I don't need to know a ton about them.
Exactly.
Give me a core 4 or something like that. Like in this case, Kat, Wendell, Wild, Raoul, and then the villain.
I do wonder if Saban even needed to be there at all, or needed to exist.
Yeah, I wanted to see stop motion Nicki Minaj, so she definitely needed to be in there. She definitely needed to be in there in some capacity, in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if she really needed to come back though, because it's not like there was too much strong, like, but when she was introduced, it wasn't like I thought she had a strong enough introduction where she was going to circumvent and come back. Then all of a sudden she comes back, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing here? Didn't you have like 10 lines and like 7 of them weren't really relevant?
Exactly. She had a change. Spoilers, I guess, but you kind of see it from a mile away. It's like a change of heart situation. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Did that even really need to be a thing though? I don't know. Again, we could do a lot of script doctoring, but honestly, all that needed to happen beforehand. We could do post-op, but in terms of before. I don't know. I mean, look, you got freaking Jordan Peele on it, so you didn't need a script doctor. Maybe, I don't know. Again, it's behind the scenes. Maybe Peele needed to exert more control, less control, or Selick needed to do it.
I think you have two
really don't know.
visionaries here, and I think you have you have two really intelligent storytellers who have really strong, committed visions. And I think it's like you get two of the smartest men in the room in the same room together, and they try to stuff everything that they have into this.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like I said, I will say I did like a lot of this movie. I really did. I liked a lot of this movie. One of the things I really liked about it too, and maybe in your guys' opinion, it contributed to sort of the overload here. What I liked is that Wendell and Wild, and this is kind of a common trope. I haven't seen a ton of Henry Selick movies, I'll admit, but I mean, it's kind of like this: A Nightmare Before Christmas in a way. But Wendell and Wild are not really the true villains of this thing. They're not great characters, but they're not really the villains here. That's where the prison industrial complex gets introduced. But Wendell and Wild are like they're almost like henchmen. They're like stupid enough where they could be really catastrophic, but they're not. They're dopey. They're like kind of goofy. They're not like a menacing evil. They're kind of like a dopey sinister instead of a menacing evil, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and it makes him more lovable. It gives him depth. As stupid as they get sometimes.
Clenching a tube of toothpaste the whole movie.
But you know what? It's charming. At the end of the day, this movie does have a certain sense of charm. Maybe not from all of its cast of characters. I would say even not from a majority of them, but just from its form, over function. At some point, even though I personally didn't like how the plot was playing out, or at least in that certain way, just watching these characters in motion and interacting with each other and the world, it's a cool thing to watch stop motion. Like, that is such a fundamental choice to make for your film, that it's like, okay, that is it's such a stark thing, because it's not smooth. It's concertedly playing with the frames, playing with the at any point in time, because you are in and out. If you've seen the behind this, I didn't even see Kubo, but if you've seen the behind the scenes of Kubo, it's like not everything is clocked exactly perfect, right? They stretch like an accordion in and out very subtly, but it is there, and you feel that as a result of it. And just watching those 105 minutes. Nightmare Before Christmas was like 78 minutes according to Wikipedia, whereas this was 105. I wonder if it needed to be less. But watching those minutes watching the movie go by in those minutes was, it was a pleasant experience, to say the least.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think the voice acting too is very good. I think the voice acting coupled with the visual imagery carries this. I also really like to. I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand with the visual components to this too, but it does really feel like, I don't know if lived in's the right word. I don't know if it's as developed to really feel lived in, but it definitely feels like just haunting enough to be ominous, but just light enough not to be too gloomy and just too macabre and miserable either. I think they struck a really good balance
here. They did,
here.
yeah.
When it came to articulating this world, because it doesn't feel completely bleak. Like, and I sometimes with these movies too, like Henry Selick, his other name slips my mind. No. Tim Burton, in a way, like, I think I'm more thinking more as the collective of Leica Animation, who did the box trolls and such.
Oh, okay.
I think of, like, sometimes with these movies, I almost feel like I don't know who they're made for. I don't really know, like, the target audience, and I just kind of shortchange them, and I say it's the people that blow a paycheck at Hot Topic. But with this though, like, I'm like, I feel like there's a good amount of people that can gravitate to something like this, especially with Jordan Peele inviting some tangible commentary into it. I think that's what made me latch on to this a little bit easier.
I will say, stop motion Rust Belt America, that is the setting of this movie. I mean, it's literally called Rust Bank, but it's like, yeah, this could easily be Moline or Dixon. I don't know.
Moline's a good comp. Yeah, that's a really good. That, like,
kind of a little shade, but not 100%.
No,
maybe a lot of
as
shade.
somebody who spent a little bit of time in the Quad Cities, like, no, this definitely has a Quad Cities, like a Rock Island, Moline, like the Illinois side of the Quad Cities, particularly.
There's life there, and they're fighting. They're fighting, man.
Yeah, I always said they need to Quad Cities. I don't know how you got to come up with it, but I said whenever I hear the Billy Joel song "Allentown," I think of the Quad Cities. That is like they need to make a Midwest version of Allentown with the Quad Cities. They really do. I lived in Peru, Illinois though for years. So what the hell am I saying? I wouldn't go that far, but
no, man, that brewery was too nice.
Yeah, there you go. We're butting up against the Zoom sponsored intermission here. We'll take a quick break, and then we could probably parlay into closing thoughts too on Wendell and Wild, because we also have not a ton left, but like I do have a slightly medium length monologue when it comes to the AV Club piece on Henry Selick too. This is just an all Henry Selick show, and I'm here for it too. Even if I am like the lone man, I feel like the whataboutism as far as Wendell and Wild over here, as far as but I like this. So we shall continue. We shall continue our discussion of Wendell and Wild after the Zoom-sponsored intermission. You're watching Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. We'll be back in about 60 to 90 seconds with Sleepless with Steve. Back and better than ever. It is Sleepless with Steve, back from that Zoom-sponsored intermission. Kind of tying up loose ends with Wendell and Wild over here. This is the new Henry Selick animated film, co-written with Jordan Peele. Also nice to see Keegan-Michael Key, who I will admit to, apropos of really nothing, but Keegan-Michael Key has definitely been, I feel like I'm the only person on the earth watching this damn show, but like, who's kept up with it too. But that show Reboot on Netflix with him and Johnny Knoxville and Judy Greer.
My dad told me to watch it because he was
funny
like,
show.
It's a great show,
I actually
man.
heard good things about it.
Have you watched it too?
Yeah, I have. I watched the first
not.
2 episodes. I loved it.
It's very good. I've been keeping up with it week to week. It's very funny. It's got I think it's from the people who did Modern Family. It's got a very Modern Family quality to it.
It is the next show I'm going to start watching. I have 2 shows on my radar right now that I'm finishing up, but once those 2 are done, I'm going on to that show.
Is that on Peacock or Hulu?
Hulu. Highly recommend. It's funny as hell, and it sneaks up on you with how funny it is. But that's where it does. Johnny Knoxville's great in it too. But anyway, yeah, Keegan-Michael Key, though, I'm glad to see him get some work and everything, and it's kind of cool too. This is just another ancillary benefit I think of this movie is that like extraneous benefit, I guess you would say, is that like, like I think some people are kind of like upset that like Key and Peele they feel like it ended too quickly or something like that.
Mm,
I've heard that discourse a little bit. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying I've heard it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I'd rather a good thing end too soon than too late
Yeah.
personally.
same.
But like there is some Key and Peele kind of charm to this thing. Like a little bit darker. It almost kind of plays like a this is weird. I might be spitballing too much here. It kind of plays like a Key and Peele Treehouse of Horror in a way, and I like that quality to it. And I'm also a huge fan of stop motion animation. I grew up with Wallace and Gromit, which is more claymation, but still, point still stands. But I did like this movie, flaws and all. I do think it's overstuffed though, and I do think that like they definitely should have leaned into letting the setting tell the story more than the script and the constant need for origin kind of prolonging the story. I think at a 90-minute even like a 95-minute runtime, I think this thing
No.
would have been notably more effective. But I'm still giving it 3 out of 4 stars. I did have a good time with this thing. I truly did. I think it was a good movie too. Just also for me selfishly, it was also a good movie after like 2 weeks off of watching movies. It's kind of a good movie to like jump back into the fold with, if you will. So I give it 3 out of 4 stars. I got a feeling that might be the highest rating of the show. Let's go to Joe and find out.
It is, as for me right now. But yeah, man, I mean, this, don't get me wrong, I loved watching this movie, looking at it and everything and all of its glorious detail. I love that part about this movie, and I will commend it for that, and it'll definitely get the highest praise I can give just for the animation alone. If there's a reason why you should watch this movie, it is because of the art of this movie, like literally the look of this movie. It's great to look at. It's amazing. I love stop motion, especially Henry Selick stop motion. But yeah, man, I kind of just wish, like, this is going to sound so stupid, but I really wish this movie just was more selling me on just, like, the vibes of this world and just, like, the look of it more than actually trying to sell me a world that I didn't, like, need, honestly. It's like, look, dude, I don't need to, like, know the backstory of hunting demons in this world. Like, I could care less. Just sell me, let me vibe with how cool this movie is. Let me just get, like, lost in it. And just every moment that I thought it was going to happen, it just pulled back and tried to introduce a whole new plot line with a character they just introduced. For me, it is 2.5 out of 3 stars. I mean, 4 stars.
Dom, send us home on Wendell and Wild.
I yeah, it's sad that a movie that gets the message right doesn't quite deliver well on the what it's delivering the message in.
Yeah.
And that's always frustrating, especially because they're good for it, right? Peele's freaking good for it. But at the end of the day, is the movie like actually entertaining and coherent enough to watch? And it just doesn't quite get there for me. I'll be a little merciful and say 2.5 out of 4 stars. Definitely slanted quite a bit, but if you can't get those fundamentals just right, then I think a lot of people are. I'm actually very glad that it seems, at least here in the first, opening salvos, people aren't going as hard on it as I thought.
No, yeah. I was gonna say, Steve, I know you didn't look at reviews from other critics, but no, this is getting a very positive reception. If anything, Dom and I are in the minority here when it comes to it.
Yeah, outside of Tallarico's review on RogerEbert.com that I read after the movie, I did not look at this consensus for this thing. Is it getting pretty positive reviews?
I think
though?
Last time I
somewhat
checked,
positive actually.
Yeah, last time I checked, it was at 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, I mean, that could just be a bunch of 3-star reviews, but I mean, still, like,
Yeah, I don't want to get too meta in it, so my apologies. But yeah, I do hope we get to see something from Selick again at some point.
Absolutely.
And maybe, I don't know, does he work best as a collaborator or on his own? I can't answer that question, because obviously his first movie, right, his directorial debut was Nightmare with Tim Burton, and again, that was a collaboration, we'll say, if it's to say the least, in the following story. But
he does do great, don't get me, because, like, I mean, even Coraline, while that was all him, it was based on like a book, and I feel like this guy, like when it comes to taking a book and actually bringing it to life, he does a great job with it. Wendell and Wild is also,
it's like a storybook come to life.
Yeah.
Cliche as it is, but
Wendell Wild is
also
based on a book. All of them are, as far as I remember.
I
so
think
it's,
they all are.
yeah, like he does collaborate in some ways with, like, you know, whether it be source material or another creator like Peel or Burton. But it's just like, hey man, like, you know, I'm glad he's back, and I want him to do more stuff. Whether it's with Netflix, if Netflix wanted to keep him in house for like a few more movies, by all means, please do.
Yeah.
An
unpublished book. This is based off of, by the way, an unpublished book. I haven't seen that.
Okay.
I
happen
noticed that
since Scott Pilgrim, where they filmed the movie in the middle of the series being produced, like before the last book. Yeah. So that's interesting. I'm curious to see how that book comes out.
Shout out to Scott Pilgrim too, because that graphic novel series got me through my freshman year of high school.
Bro,
series.
That is the kind of book, that total tangent, that a lot of people in high school and college needed to hear. I don't know if they got the message correctly, but at least they journeyed with Scott together. And I don't know if maybe there are a lot of affected youths that maybe need to see Wendell in a while and be like, no man, just keep fighting, just fight in the right direction. I don't know, but yeah, 2.5 out of 4 for me.
I dig it. We will move forward here. Since we do have a little extra time, I just want to say this too, because I think I brought this up on the show. I would have definitely brought this up on the show last week during the horror movies, but I know I brought it up to Joe, and I just saw this now just out of the corner of my eye when I just pulled up Facebook or whatever. You guys have heard, I know Joe has, you guys have heard about that Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey horror movie, right?
I have.
You've heard of that? Now, I made a point. I made a tweet because I was bored one night, and I was like, I was thinking about it. I was like, if this thing doesn't come out during October, the month of October, which it clearly didn't, I was like, that's distribution malpractice, in my opinion. Well, guess what? It is getting a release date. I just saw this. February 15th. It's actually getting a Fathom event release.
Oh.
Huh.
So I'm like, okay, you know what? That's a rebound then. If it was just coming to video on demand in February, I'd be pissed. But I'm like, no. So now I know what I'm doing on February 15th. Cool. I'm like, so that's cool. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. I might do a solo review of that when the time comes. Burn that bridge when we come to it. Hopefully it's just a little bit more bearable than Jeepers Creepers Reborn. Because the more I think about that movie, the more pissed off I get. You're probably glad I wasn't on the show last week for the horror movies of 2022. But anyway, though, I wanted to touch on this. We didn't really have a news story guiltily going into today until kind of the 11th hour, because there wasn't a ton to really monitor. But I did see this. I have seen this reposted. This is one of those stories, too, that, like, it's one of the very few stories that, like, you could almost get the whole gist of if you see it on Twitter and stuff. But it's interesting. With Wendell and Wild's release, obviously, Henry Selick's doing a lot of press. He's getting a lot of interviews and stuff from local Hollywood Reporter and all these different sites. Well, it's the Emma Keats piece that was published yesterday afternoon, an AV Club that's been making the rounds. And I really like the headline of this thing. I will admit, as somebody who has to write articles for my current job, I really love the headline of this. The headline is "The Nightmare Before Christmas" director Henry Selick is humbly asking for a little bit of credit. What a really good just direct headline that like gets you in on an empathy level. Yeah, and this goes back to one of Selick's earlier features, which we brought up just really in name only when we were reviewing Wendell and Wild. The Nightmare Before Christmas. Now, that's actually a really good trivia question. Who directed The Nightmare Before Christmas? Because the film's title is actually Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. And that doesn't happen very often, where, like, all of Tyler Perry's movies are technically called Tyler Perry's A Jazz Man's Blues, or Tyler Perry's A Medea Christmas. That is technically the title of them. A lot of people obviously just shorten it. Or like Lee Daniels' The Butler is another one. But it's rare, so rare that it's hard for me to think of like another case where in this case it was the story writer got the credit for the title his name is in the title of the movie when he was not the director. And Selick, who I guess has been pretty mum on this throughout the last several decades, which, my God, I'm like King Petty over here. The damn thing would have still been in theaters and I would have mentioned this. But he said, though, in this interview, he said, he said when it comes to like people thinking that Tim Burton directed A Nightmare Before Christmas, is that Henry Selick kind of gets forgotten about, that is his movie, at least directorial credit, in terms of directorial credit, that is his movie. He said, and this is a great quote, I just want to read this. He says, "That was a little unfair because it wasn't called Tim Burton's Nightmare until 3 weeks before the film came out. And I would have been fine with that if that's what I signed up for. But Tim was in LA making 2 features while I directed that film. And I mean, Tim is a genius, or he certainly was in his most creative years." What a shot! What a shot there! Reading that aloud made it hit more. Like, what a shot! Tim is a genius, or he certainly was in his most creative years. Oh, Selick saw Dumbo. I always thought his story was perfect, and he designed the main characters, but it was really me and my team of people who brought that to life. And he's not wrong. This happens a lot, and it's probably worth bringing this up too, because a lot of people are going to probably credit Jordan Peele for this Wendell and Wild.
Oh, well, I literally, I pretty much implied it throughout my review. 100%.
A lot of people are, and you know what happens? Like, it is at its core, it's not a Selick versus Burton problem. It's not a Peele versus Selick problem. I don't even have any issue at all. I don't think anybody should or does that Selick even brought this up. I don't even think in his heart of hearts Tim Burton would have a problem with him bringing this up. It's a marketing problem.
Yep.
Is what it is. It's a marketing problem. And the most recent example I could think of this affecting was Candyman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just thinking that too.
Candyman was probably the most recent example where people probably for the rest of time are still going to think Jordan Peele did that movie because of the damn posters. It was not Nia DaCosta did not have a huge directorial credit to her name, so putting Nia DaCosta's Candyman on there was not going to put any butts in seats.
It's not even a case of is it Nia DaCosta or Jordan Peele? No, I literally forgot the name Nia DaCosta until you said it.
Yeah, Nia DaCosta is the one behind Candyman, and she doesn't get any credit because, and I also think I could be wrong. Somebody could fact check me on this. I want to say the poster for Candyman. I don't know if it said, it's just the one with the honey covered hook. I don't know if it said from the producer of Get Out and Us, or if it said from the mind that brought you Get Out and Us.
Well, the ones I'm seeing here are
film producer. He gets first billing on that poster, the one that you're talking about, Steve.
I knew that. It
says film producer hook. Jordan Peele, a film by Nia DaCosta, Candyman.
Okay, because I wasn't sure. Maybe it was the trailer, or I'm just completely fumbling this. But I wanted to say that, like, at one of the paratexts for that movie, it said "from the mind that brought you Get Out," or "from the mind of the creator Get Out," or something like that, which further confuses audiences. Because we got to remember this, and this is something
it was the trailer.
It was the trailer.
Yeah,
and this is something I have to remind myself less regularly now, but more consistently, at least, is that not everybody lives on Wikipedia and breeds movies. People have mortgages and kids and lives and stuff like that, unlike myself. And people also have other outside interests. And people at the end of the day, I look to movies as entertainment, but, don't bring necessarily the sort of critical, analytical eye that even we do as a collective. So I have to remember that a lot. Like, to me, it's like, yeah, I know Henry Selick directed A Nightmare Before Christmas. I know that. I think it'd be a good trivia question. But I can't blame anybody when the damn thing's called Tim Burton's A Nightmare Before Christmas. You almost have to think for a second, oh, yeah, that was Selick who did direct the thing.
People don't even know the name Selick. They just know Nightmare.
No,
Tim Burton.
You know how many times I've gone to trivia nights with friends, and I came in clutch because none of them pay attention to that shit. I know that answer.
That too in the article.
Yeah, no, it's true. Henry Selick's not a household name, and I always determine, like, are they a household name? Like, about 75 plus people in my apartment complex. I kind of just think to myself, like, could I knock on a door of, like, one of the buildings and, like, ask somebody, do you know who this person is, and can they give me an answer? Mm-hmm. And that's how I kind of determine a household name. Like, if I did that multiple times, and be a nuisance to my community. But moreover, though, I really like this article, though, because, and I'm glad Selick came out and said something too. And I liked I also like too, and this is what I should have probably even looked at this or threw this in too. He said Selick wants to remind audiences that despite the big name, this new film is almost all him. He said with Jordan, it's 90% me and 10% him at the most. These are my movies and other people have contributed. Now, it's also when you think about it too, and I'm just going to throw this after I told you I had a mini monologue for this too. Like Henry Selick too, I think part of the issue is that like he collaborates a lot. He collaborates a lot with people who have just become bigger names than himself. Like James and the Giant Peach, Tim Burton produced, and that was based off a Roald Dahl book. So like he kind of has that friction where he's like he might be the mastermind behind the adaptation, but he's not the biggest name in the room either. And then he collaborates with somebody like Peele, like Burton, who is a household name. He's gonna get overshadowed, unfairly or fairly or not, but I still think at the root of it, it's really kind of a marketing issue at the end of the day. Dom and then Joe, I'll go Dom first. What say you about this? What did you think of this AV Club piece?
I mean, it dips a little bit into like he said, drama of just like, all right, come on. But the fact that he spoke out about it, I mean, he set that stage for himself, especially that little snide little comment there, which is great, but I'm sure that's not going to help anything, especially if someone claps back on this. But
that's kind of funny.
I mean, AV Club comments are always gold as well.
Doesn't
mean
fighting,
good.
That was
just gold.
He said earlier in the article or in the interview, he said, I've won many a bar argument saying that like Tim Burton didn't direct Nightmare Before Christmas. That was like that little remark right there was the outcome of like 30 plus years of winning those bar arguments. That's what that was.
You could get into a bar argument just saying, no, I make movies. And like that's it.
Like, look at yourself, you Jersey bloke. Anyway, go on.
Really not much else to say here other than what does Tim Burton say next? What does Jordan Peele say next about this? But it's a quirky little thing based off what he said. And I do appreciate, as Steve said, I do appreciate the title because I think it softens the blow a little bit. We'll see. That's some decent writing there. So we'll see what happens next. And I just reflecting based off of it, Nightmare Before Christmas is such a monumental is a little too strong, but it is embedded into the hearts and minds of millennials, particularly late millennials, who that's like their entry into Disney for a lot of people, is that specific movie. So the fact that no one knows the name Henry Selick, that is a little bit of a like. That does suck if especially if that guy hears that soundtrack all the time. Selick, he sees probably
sure.
I don't know if he has kids but maybe nieces and nephews and his kids are like, yeah, I love A Nightmare Before Christmas. His grandkids,
I just imagine him at Fright Fest and he just hears like, this is Halloween, and just some little kids like, I love Tim Burton, and he's just like, ah.
Exactly, Joe.
This was a very fun article about a man I wish got more credit than he actually does deserve. It sucks, that like, yeah, people actually really don't know that he directed it. Again, like I said, I always come in clutch at any trivia night, especially Halloween or Christmas movie trivia. This is always a question, and you won't believe, no matter how many times I go to trivia nights, I'm like, all right, truly, there's going to be more than just me getting it right. And it's like, most of the time, it's just me. There's a few times it's me and another table, but never all participants. It's always the later question they save for like the end of the night. It sucks that he doesn't get that credit. It sucks that Wendell Wild might be another case where he doesn't get that credit. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I'm glad he's back. I'm hoping he does more and more movies so he can make more of a name for himself, because it was like, man, Coraline was badass. And I remember every kid I talked to loved that movie and was talking about it. And I felt like if he would have kept making movies, and I don't know why he stopped or anything. I never kept up with him as a director. But if he would have continued after that, I felt like, yeah, he could have been possibly not a household name, but a well-known name. Like, okay, like I know who this director is, or, oh, hey, I know this animation style. This is the guy that did Coraline. Yeah, man, it's a fun article about, Henry Selick, who very much deserves more credit, like I said. That's about it. That's all I got to say.
Good show. Once we end the show on time too. How about that? How about that?
Never.
I dig it. I dig it. Yeah, for the first time ever. But great show, gents. Really fun time conversing with you about movies. Good to be back. Thanks for holding down the fort too. I should have said that earlier in the show last week. Guys did a great job. I did get to tune in for a little bit of that show you guys did last Wednesday.
Steve, number one Halloween movie of 2022.
I was going to ask you that when you first got in here, actually, while we're waiting for Dom, but go ahead.
Oh, that's a tough one. I would probably I did talk about this with a friend over lunch this past week. I would almost have to say the Black Phone. I would say the Black Phone or X. It's a tough call.
X over Pearl, right?
X over Pearl, yeah. X over Pearl. Top three would be probably for me Black Phone, X, and if we want to, I mean, I know we're gonna get in like thriller horror territory. I would throw Nope in there too.
Nope was on my top three.
Oh yeah, well. I put Nope in horror. Nope in You're right; it does straddle the line, but I'll put it in horror.
Yeah. I love the reason I love the Black Phone. One of the many reasons we didn't review that on the show, but like for Dom's mental health purposes. But
dude, thank you.
The Black Phone, though, the reason I liked that movie so much was that was one of the few movies that I felt like was set in 1978, I believe, that looked like it was made in 1978.
Yep.
It felt like it, and it looked like it breathed like it. It was creepy. It was weird. It was different. I enjoyed that aspect of it. But yeah, I'd probably say the Black Phone. I would probably say the Black Phone for me.
Damn, that was not where my money was at all.
Yeah, but what were you thinking? What were you thinking?
I thought it was going to be X. In all honesty, I thought like X was your favorite horror film this year. I mean, I was close, but I thought it was that one.
X is definitely up there, though. Yeah, it's tough. It might even be a couple horror movies on my top 10 list. Time will tell. Time will tell on that.
We'll see how the menu shapes up.
Oh, I'm stoked for the menu. I already bought my tickets on Stubs. That's how stoked I am for the menu. So yeah, that's gonna be a fun one. I'm gonna have some good food puns. I'm gonna serve up some good food puns when we review the menu. You're
gonna be invited to that island the following week.
no kidding, right? Yeah, take me off the boat and shoot me. That's our show, Sleepless with Steve. It is great to be back. We're gonna be talking Tar and Weird the Al Yankovic story next week. Double header next week. Super pumped for it. Cannot wait. Till then, till next Wednesday, same time, same place. For Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.